Times it just made me feel like I was home. You know, to hear the sound of that fire, to smell it, and watching what it was doing, and watching, watching the behavior of it, I felt really good. And I was like, okay, this is perfect. We use that fire the right way. This is what we need to heal this. This is the fire that is going to heal this part of the land. I'm Vern Northrup. I'm a retired wildland fire operations specialist, and my role at Wisconsin Point Burn was as an advisor and as being a Fond du Lac elder. Well, you have to understand what a prescribed fire is. A prescribed fire is literally a prescription for what we would like the fire to do on the ground, and where you have to understand is when you're working with fire, you have to be very precise on what you want to happen there, and using the right parameters to make that happen. And we didn't want it all burned up, all black from end to end. We wanted just a slow, low fire and let it crawl around on its own, so it creates like a mosaic in the understory. That way you have different species growing at different rates, which is what we want, not only for the wildlife, but for the plants themselves. Plants grow better when they grow at different growth rates. It started thousands of years ago, because the Anishinaabe and people throughout the world have used fire to manage their environment. For at least 80 uses of fire that people use around the world to manage their environment. The Anishinaabe have used it since time immemorial, and there's a lot of different ways they used it. They used it for food, they used it to build their canoes, for the all kinds of use, just to manage their yards, in fact, to keep the bugs out of their yards. We have records of people that burned every year. My job in fire was, to put the wet stuff on the red stuff, to put fires out. But I knew, in my training and using prescribed fire, I knew Wisconsin Point and Minnesota Point needed it very badly, because you can't walk through portions of it. You have to stay on those little paths. But we're trying all those things to help manage that forest, to bring it back to where it was 100 years ago. The last fire that was there on Wisconsin Point was in 1859. So we're returning that spirit back there on that point of land. As far as prescribed fire is, I'm not doing it for me. I'm not doing it for my children, my grandchildren. I'm doing it for 7 generations out, because I want them to have some of the things we have.
The recent burn at Wisconsin Point is one example of how land managers and community partners are working together to support the long-term health of the area. By reintroducing intentional fire and drawing from Indigenous perspectives, the restoration efforts aim to create a stronger, more resilient landscape for the future.